moving. Well, yeah, but it also means it's time for my July wrap-up. July was a huge month for me with reading. I read 10 books this month, and I actually did video reviews for about half of them. 2 of them I didn't because they were arcs, so I can't post the reviews yet. But I did a lot of reviews this month, and I will link those below. I will also have links to them as I talk about the books, so you can check them out as we go. Meanwhile, because there's a lot to talk about, let's get started. First up, we have Summer Days and Summer Nights. This is an anthology of summer romance stories. As I said in my review of this, I enjoyed it more than the one that takes place during the winter holiday season, and it was a lot of fun. It was definitely worth reading. Some of the stories were obviously better than others. There were some that were 5 stars. One I think that was 2 stars, a lot that were 3 and 4 stars in here. But definitely worth reading. It's an easy read. You won't feel like you have to do it in one sitting because there are 12 separate stories in here. So if you have time for just a little story here or there, go for it. It's a lot of fun. Next up is one of those arcs I was talking about, and this one I got from my friend Flo, and I was so excited when I saw that she sent me this. It is Gemena by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I actually read Illuminae as an arc as well, and I loved that book, and I loved this book. If you've read Illuminae, you have an idea of what happens in that book. This one continues the story, but with new main characters. It follows Nick and Hannah, 2 characters that would not get along in normal circumstances, but when the space shuttle that they live on is attacked, they end up finding that they have to work together in order to survive. There are twists and turns, just like the first one. It's written completely in files of emails and texts and video transcripts and computers, and it's such an adventure and definitely worth the read. It looks really big. There are a ton of pages that have very little writing on it, so it's actually not a hard read at all. I think I read this in about 2 days. Definitely worth reading. Pick it up. It comes out in October, and if I hadn't already read it, I would be going to get it right away because this book is amazing. Next up, I read We Can Work It Out. This is actually a book I got from Scholastic on Valentine's Day. It's a sequel to The Lonely Hearts Club, and the first one is about a girl who has had terrible experiences with boys and decides to create a club where they declare that they're going to be single and not worry about other people. But they learn that that might not be the best idea, and maybe they should focus more on just being with their friends and making sure they don't lose their friends when they do become in a relationship, if they choose to, than swearing off boys. If you have not read the first one, I recommend muting the camera until I put the book down, because anything I say about this one will spoil the first one. Okay? So this one is about Penny Lane now has a boyfriend and needs to figure out how to work both having a boyfriend and being in charge of the Lonely Hearts Club, which is growing and expanding, and they're becoming more clubs at other schools, and it's becoming much more than she could probably handle on her own. And she needs to juggle having a boyfriend, having that club, and her family and school all at the same time, and we get to see if she can really handle it. This book, it's a light read, it's easy, it's a lot of fun, it's not emotionally draining, but it's definitely worth reading. I really like this book. I gave it 4 stars. And it's not the most challenging read, it's not going to have you thinking forever, but it's a lot of fun. Next up, I read my second arc of the month. It is Frost Like Night by Sarah Rush. Now, I did not love the second book in this series. I love the third one. I didn't love the second. I did give it 4 stars, but it was more that the first 3/4 of it were like a high 3 stars, and then the end of it was fantastic, so I ended up with 4 stars for that one. This one I gave 5 stars. It was an amazing ending to the story. Everything worked out really well. And again, I didn't do a video for this one purely because it comes out in September. And from now on, I'm gonna try to do videos right away, even if I can't put them up for months, because I'm starting to forget exactly what I loved about this, which is very sad. Or I should just take really good notes, which I have started this month as well. Definitely read it if you've read the first 2. It's wonderful. I'm not going to get into exactly what happens in this book because it will spoil the first 2, because unlike Gemena, it is a continuation of the same story, but know that the story does wrap up really well, and I did enjoy it better than the second one. Okay. Next, I read Life After Juliet, and I did do a book talk for this one, so you can click the book if you want to see that. This is one where I actually read this before the book that it's a companion to, and I recommend not doing that. If you have not read it yet, I will be talking about the other book that comes before this one in a little bit. Definitely read that one first, because this one spoils that one completely. They are separate stories, they follow separate characters, but if you have not read the first one and you plan to read the first one, this one will spoil it. It was really good. I really enjoyed it even without having read the first one. I think I would have enjoyed it more had I read the first one first. I gave it 4 stars. It might have been 5 stars if I had read the first one first. I would have to read it again to find out for sure. But it's really fun. It's about a girl who has gone through something terrible, and that's all I'm going to say in order to avoid spoiling the first one. But it's kind of left her unable to trust people and let people in. And she ends up opening up a little bit and starting to let people in, which might be good, might be bad. But like I said, great read, definitely worth picking up. Enjoy it. Next up, I read You Know Me Well by Nina LaCour and David Levithan. This one, I actually technically have an arc, but I didn't get it until after the book was out. So I guess I technically read it as an arc, but the book was out already. Anyway, this follows 2 people during Pride Week, and it's kind of their adventure. They had known each other before, but they see each other, and it's friendship at first sight, except it's not really first sight, but it's friendship at first speaking to each other. Mark is in love with his best friend and hasn't been able to tell him, and isn't sure if the best friend's feelings are reciprocated because they have a history of things happening, but no emotions along with the things that have happened on the other ends that we know of. So he's not really sure what to do about that. Meanwhile, Kate has been pretty much in love with a girl that she's never actually met for a while. It's a cousin of her best friend, and she's supposed to meet her for the first time that night and freaks out. And the 2 of them meet, and they get wound up in each other's adventures. One of the stories ended exactly how I wanted it to. The other one was a little upsetting, but I guess that's real life, and that was the point. It worked out in a nice place, I think. The character development in the story was really good. I think for a week, both of those main characters grew a lot and got from a very confusing place to a place where they pretty much knew exactly who they were, and if they didn't know where they were going, they at least knew where they weren't going. If you are a part of or an ally of the LGBT community, definitely pick this up, because it was written for that community, from that community, and it's alive in this book. I started this trilogy, and I'm really excited. I had heard wonderful things about it, and now I'm reading it, and it's wonderful. Okay, so I read The Winner's Curse, and I have a video for this, so you can click on the book to watch it. And I loved this book. I gave this one a strong 4 stars, and it was so good. I also had a little bit of a white privilege rant in my video for this book. But it's about a girl who lives in a country where there are slaves, and she buys a slave even though she despises the fact that there are slaves, and she despises the fact that her father has slaves, but something compels her to buy this one, and perhaps she develops feelings for him. And that's all I'm going to say, because you should discover everything there is to discover about this book on your own, because it is wonderful. Next up, I read book 2 of the same series, The Winter's Crime. And I'm not going to get into this one because if you haven't read the first one, anything I say in this one will be a spoiler, but it continues the story and it's wonderful, and I believe I gave this one 5 stars because it was absolutely amazing and I really wanted to pick up the 3rd book right away. Unfortunately, I didn't have it from the library, but we'll talk about that more in a little bit. But read the series. It's amazing. I'm not finished yet, but it's amazing. Read it. I did tape a book talk for this one, but I have not fully edited it yet, so it is not up yet. Once it is up, you can click this book to see it, and I'll talk about it then. Next, I read Love and Other Unknown Variables. This is the first book that goes with Life with Juliet. And this one is about Charlie, who is the brother of Becca, the character in Life with Juliet. And Charlie is a math whiz who is all set for his life. He's planning to go to MIT for college next year, but all of a sudden he meets a girl that kind of throws his life into chaos, and he needs to decide if it's worth getting involved with a girl and maybe not concentrating on his schooling quite as much. I think I gave this one 4 stars. I actually didn't like it quite as much as the first one, and I think that was also partly because I was completely spoiled because I did not read them in the correct order. So once again, read this one before Life with Juliet, because I knew all of the twists and turns that were coming. The things that were supposed to be absolutely shocking to me weren't. I knew from the first page how this book was going to end, and I didn't want to, but I did. Read this one first, okay? Okay, the last thing I read this month was Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I do have a video for this one. Feel free to click on the book and check it out. I was disappointed with this book. I didn't rate it. I refused to rate it because I cannot possibly give a Harry Potter book less than 4 stars, and this one did not deserve 4 stars. I haven't decided what I think it did deserve. I don't think I'm letting myself decide what it did deserve, but I did not like this book. I went on a whole rant about why I did not like this book. Feel free to read it if you want to. I kind of wish I didn't read it because now I'm trying to forget it, but if you want to read it and form your own opinions, go ahead. I have plenty of friends that did really enjoy it. Read it, make your own opinions, see if you agree with me or not. I want to kind of forget about this book exists, so I'm going to stop talking about it now. Okay, yeah, goodbye book. That is it for the books that I read in July, but I did get 2 more books this month, so let's see what those are about. As you may have seen in previous videos, Entangled often sends me books, and I actually need to give them my new address when I move because I want to keep getting those books. But this month, they sent me The Replacement Crush, and I haven't read this yet. I've only read the back. But it sounds like it's about a blogger who had a little thing with a guy over the summer, and then when the school year starts, he acts like it didn't happen. And this upsets her, obviously, and then there's a new boy that comes and seems like a really good replacement crush for her. I don't know if she forces herself to like this new guy instead, or if it happens gradually, but it sounds like a fun read, so I definitely am excited to check that out. The other book I got this month, I have already started, but I started it yesterday, which was already August, so it doesn't count, but I bought it in July, so I'm including it. And that's The Winter's Kiss, and this is the last book in the Winter's trilogy, which I've already talked about, and I've heard amazing things about this book, and just in the first couple chapters, I'm already sucked in and losing my mind and writing in my notebook in all caps, which is more difficult to do when you're writing than it is when you're typing. everybody seems to like this one the best out of all of them, and I loved the others, so I'm really excited, and I'm gonna go keep reading. So that's it. That was my July. I read so many books this month, and most of them were amazing, and it's been a great month, and the summer is coming to a close in a little bit, and I'm moving in 2 days. So anyway, I'll talk to you next time.